After months of silence, swirling headlines, and relentless speculation, Prince William has broken his silence and confirmed what millions feared. In a deeply emotional statement released just 3 hours ago, the truth about Princess Catherine's disappearance was finally revealed. It's not gossip. It's not theory. It's real. And it's heartbreaking. The world is reeling. And for the first time, the palace is no longer hiding behind tradition. The silence is over. The statement that shook the nation. At 12:03 p.m. on Monday, November 17, 2025, Kensington Palace issued a rare and deeply personal statement, one that didn't come from a royal aide or PR team, but directly from Prince William. The subject? His wife, Princess Catherine, and the months of rumors that had haunted the palace, the press, and the public. For the first time in nearly 6 months, the silence was shattered and replaced by something the royal family rarely offers: raw truth. After many difficult months, Catherine and I feel it's time you knew the truth. The words were simple, but they landed like thunder. Royal watchers had speculated endlessly since late May, when Catherine quietly vanished from the public eye. But William's message was different from any previous royal communication. It wasn't polished or political. It was emotional, honest. The voice of a husband, not a prince. He didn't speak in platitudes. He spoke in pain, strength, and love. In just 683 words, he rewrote the royal rulebook. For decades, royal statements had been carefully managed, shaped by protocol, PR teams, and centuries of tradition. But this one broke every mold. William didn't hide behind formal language. Instead, he described what life had been like inside Adelaide Cottage during the past few months. The waiting, the uncertainty, the fear. "We've lived day by day," he wrote, "not as a prince and princess, but as a family clinging to hope." In that moment, the monarchy stopped being an institution and started being human. His statement ended not with a call for sympathy, but with something much more powerful: permission. She is still fighting, but now she doesn't have to do it in silence. And just like that, the silence ended, replaced by a wave of support, grief, and national reflection. William had done what few royals had ever dared. He told the truth, even when it hurt. And the world, breath held, listened. But truth doesn't arrive in a vacuum. It had been building, pressure mounting with every rumor, every tabloid cover, every whisper on social media. For months, the public had been asking one question: where is Catherine? The longer the palace remained silent, the louder that question grew. And in the void left by real answers, fantasy took root. What followed was a spiral of speculation so intense it threatened to drown out the truth before it could ever be spoken. The rumors that wouldn't go away. The silence didn't calm the world. It provoked it. From early June 2025, online speculation began trickling into the mainstream. At first, it was subtle. A missed garden party at Buckingham Palace. A cancelled speech in Manchester. Catherine's name quietly vanished from upcoming royal calendars. But then the questions came. Not whispered anymore, but posted, shared, analyzed across every platform. Where is she? Why hasn't anyone seen her in public since late May? Was it health? Was it scandal? Was she ever coming back? By July, royal forums turned chaotic. People on Reddit and TikTok dissected old footage. In one video, Catherine's hand was shaking slightly during a school visit in April. It gained 5.4 million views in 48 hours. Is this when it started? One caption asked. Conspiracy theories grew bolder. Some claimed she was secretly abroad. Others said she was in a private clinic. One viral tweet even suggested she was no longer living at Adelaide Cottage at all. The palace, true to tradition, said nothing. But that silence was deafening. No confirmations, no denials, just resting and taking private time. And in that vacuum, imagination turned into fear. Even major media outlets, once cautious, began leaning into the mystery. Sky News, ITV, and foreign press in Spain and Germany ran specials like The Vanishing Princess, Where is Kate? Paparazzi dug through old images, republishing them with bold, misleading dates. One tabloid ran a front-page photo taken in 2022, claiming it was from August 2025. Every article stoked the flames. Prince William acknowledged all of this in his statement. "We watched from behind the walls of our home as the world invented its own story," he wrote. "We stayed quiet, out of love. Not out of shame, not out of fear, but to give her the space to fight. But space was something the world no longer wanted to give. And as the speculation raged outside palace gates, inside, a different reality was unfolding. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't scandalous. It was simply real and deeply painful. While headlines screamed drama, the truth was unfolding behind closed doors. Catherine wasn't missing. She was home. She was resting. She was surviving. But most of all, she was retreating from the spotlight for a reason the world would soon learn. Because what was happening to her wasn't just private. It was life-altering. Catherine's disappearance from public life. By August 2025, it was impossible to ignore. Princess Catherine had vanished from public life. There were no new photos, no speeches, no visits to children's charities or health campaigns. The appearances she once made look effortless, walking alongside Prince William, greeting hospital workers, kneeling to speak to children, simply stopped. Her calendar, once packed with engagements, was suddenly empty. The last time she had been seen in public was at Wimbledon on July 6th. She had stayed just 47 minutes. Royal watchers noticed immediately. The patterns were too obvious. Events she had attended for over a decade, like the Royal Foundation's Early Childhood Summit, now listed Senior Royal Representative, TBD. At first, aides offered vague lines. The princess is taking personal time. Her Royal Highness is resting with family. But as the weeks dragged on, those statements became harder to believe and harder to accept. Behind palace walls, however, there was no mystery, only heartbreak. According to William's statement, Catherine had begun experiencing symptoms in April: fatigue, pain, sudden weight loss. After multiple tests in May, specialists confirmed the need for intensive treatment. By late July, she was receiving care daily, with the London clinic coordinating alongside private specialists. Her days became a quiet rhythm of medication, rest, and managing side effects. The woman known for poise, strength, and composure was now fighting every hour to regain control of her body. William revealed the toll this took on their home. She asked for privacy so she could fight in peace, he wrote. Not as a princess, not as a public figure, just as a woman, a wife, and a mother trying to get better. The world thought she had disappeared, but the truth was, she was right there, just hidden from view. Not because she was gone, but because she was trying to come back. And yet, the weight of silence carried its own cost. The more Catherine stayed hidden, the more brutal the outside noise became. But inside Adelaide Cottage, the focus wasn't on optics or PR. It was on survival. As public suspicion escalated, William and Catherine were facing a truth far heavier than gossip, a diagnosis that would change everything. The time had come for the world to finally learn what they had been carrying, in silence, in private, for months. The truth behind her condition. When William finally addressed the nation, he didn't hide behind vague phrases or polished palace language. He spoke plainly. Catherine had been undergoing intensive medical treatment since late July 2025, after specialists confirmed a serious condition that required immediate care. The diagnosis came during a quiet appointment on May 29th, a day William later described as the longest 12 hours of my life. There had been no time for planning, no time to prepare. Their world changed in one sentence. The illness had crept in slowly. In April 2025, Catherine began experiencing extreme fatigue, dizziness, and sharp abdominal pain. At first, doctors believed it was exhaustion from her workload. She had completed 27 engagements in just 6 weeks. But the symptoms grew worse. By the time Wimbledon arrived on July 6th, William said he saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen in 14 years of marriage. Fear. The moment she left the match after just 47 minutes, he knew something was terribly wrong. Treatment began immediately. Catherine was admitted to the London clinic on July 28th, where she remained for 16 days. During that time, William rarely left her side. He slept in chairs, paced hospital corridors at 3 a.m., and held her hand through endless tests. He later confessed, "There were nights I thought I might lose her." Those words were not dramatic. They were real. Behind palace walls, life became a battle fought hour by hour. Emotionally, the toll was devastating. Catherine, who had stood strong through pregnancies, early childhood work, and constant public pressure, was suddenly fragile. Her weight dropped. Her energy faded. Her confidence, usually unshakable, cracked. William wrote, "She asked me, more than once, will I be all right? And I told her the truth. I didn't know." That admission, shared publicly for the first time, broke hearts around the world. But it also revealed the depth of what they had been carrying in silence. With the truth finally revealed, the world understood why the silence had lasted so long, and why William looked exhausted in every appearance between August and October 2025. But the public still had questions. One question louder than all the others. Why didn't the palace say anything sooner? Why hide something so serious? Why let rumors explode? William knew he had to confront that next, not with excuses, but with honesty. And the answer was more human than anyone expected. Why the palace chose silence. William didn't avoid the question. He attacked it directly. "Why not speak sooner?" he wrote. The answer wasn't political. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't orchestrated by palace advisors. It came down to one thing: Catherine herself. She didn't want to be a headline, William admitted. She didn't want pity. She didn't want her children reading about her illness online. She wanted time, 10 weeks, she hoped, to fight privately before the world discovered what she was facing. Throughout June, July, and August 2025, the royal household tried desperately to create that privacy. They removed Catherine's name from events, reorganized schedules, and used phrases like private time and resting as shields. But with every cancellation, from the Manchester Youth Forum on June 18th to the Early Childhood Summit on July 22nd, to a charity gala on September 5th, the silence grew louder. And with each gap came another rumor, another wild theory, another headline. William wrote, "We hoped she would regain her strength before the world noticed she was gone." But by October, it was impossible. The public had counted 142 days since her last full engagement. Tabloids were inventing daily updates, some claiming she had collapsed at home, others insisting she had undergone secret surgery. One international magazine even published a cover on November 1st, asking, "Is the princess lost forever?" William admitted he read it standing in the kitchen at 6:52 a.m., and something in me broke. Still, he held on. For Catherine, for the children, for the belief that privacy wasn't a privilege. It was a necessity. But eventually, silence became dangerous. The lies became louder than the truth, he wrote. And when he said those words, the world understood the impossible position they had been in, trapped between protecting a woman they loved and calming the world that felt entitled to her every moment. But even as rumors swarmed the world, inside Adelaide Cottage, the only priority was the children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. They were the heart of every decision, every moment of silence, every long night spent hoping for better news. William and Catherine wanted to shield them from fear for as long as possible. But eventually, as her treatments intensified and her strength faded, the truth could not be hidden any longer. And telling the children would become one of the hardest moments of their lives. How the children were shielded. From the beginning, William and Catherine agreed. The children deserved normalcy, not fear. When Catherine began treatment in late July 2025, they chose not to tell George, 11, Charlotte, 9, and Louis, 6, everything at once. Instead, their summer was filled with routine, family breakfasts, football in the garden, movie nights, and trips to Norfolk. Even on Catherine's worst days, she tried to appear in the kitchen for at least 10 minutes, just to keep rhythm alive. But the children sensed more than the adults realized. They saw William leaving for the hospital at strange hours. They noticed Catherine sleeping more, sometimes 14 hours a day. They noticed the quiet. And children, especially royal children who learn early to read a room, recognized that something was off. On August 21st, Charlotte finally asked, "Is Mummy sick like Granny Diana was?" The question stunned William. He later said, "That was the moment we knew we had to tell them." So on a warm Friday evening in late August, they gathered on the big blue sofa in the living room. Catherine held Louis close. William faced the older two. "Mummy is unwell," he said softly. "She's getting help, and she's very brave." They didn't mention medical terms. They didn't mention the word illness. They simply told the truth, gently. George nodded quietly, fighting tears. Charlotte cried into her mother's shoulder. Louis asked, "Will she get better if I hug her more?" After that conversation, the children became her strength. Every morning, new drawings appeared beside her bed. Hearts, rainbows, crayon crowns. Every night, they said the same words. "Mummy, we believe in you." And Catherine, weakened but hopeful, told William, "They're the reason I'll survive this." The breaking point. There wasn't one dramatic moment. There were dozens. A constant drip of lies, headlines, and cruel speculation that slowly chipped away at William's patience. But the final straw came on November 1st, 2025, when a foreign tabloid ran a cover story titled "The Lost Princess Has Kate Disappeared Forever?" The article cited fake sources, manipulated images, and outright fabrications. It was published in 23 countries and read by over 9 million people within the first 48 hours. William read it that morning at 6:52 a.m., standing alone in the kitchen of Adelaide Cottage. He didn't finish it. He didn't need to. He walked out to the garden and stood in silence for nearly an hour. When Catherine joined him, wrapped in a soft blanket, she didn't speak. Then, quietly, she said, "Let them hear it from you, not from strangers." That's when he knew the time for silence had passed. The truth had to come from them. He wrote the statement himself. No ghostwriter, no PR team. It took 5 nights. He edited it 7 times, pacing the study until the early hours. Every sentence weighed against their need for dignity and the world's need for answers. "This isn't about the crown," he told an aide. "It's about my wife." Catherine approved the final version on November 16th, reading it just once and nodding. It says what needs to be said. At 12:03 p.m. on November 17th, the statement went live. Unlike anything a senior royal had ever published, it wasn't clinical or rehearsed. It was raw. William said it plainly. Catherine had been ill. She was fighting. And for the first time, the pain they had endured in private was placed before the public. "She is still healing," he wrote. "But now, she doesn't have to do it in the dark." And in that moment, the palace, the entire monarchy, shifted. Within minutes, the statement reverberated across the globe. Social media exploded. Television anchors choked up mid-broadcast. Public figures who had remained quiet for months now rushed to express their support. But the most remarkable response didn't come from leaders, celebrities, or journalists. It came from the people, the mothers, the fathers, the quiet admirers, the strangers who had watched Catherine for years and felt like they knew her. They were the first to light candles, share prayers, and fill the silence with compassion. The public's response was immediate. The world reacted in real time, and it was unlike anything the royal family had ever seen. On Instagram, #WeLoveYou. Catherine appeared in over 3.6 million posts within 12 hours. On X, formerly Twitter, #StandWithKate trended globally in 41 countries. In the first 24 hours, over 12,000 handwritten notes were sent to Kensington Palace, many from people who had never written a letter in their lives. People were crying, at home, in workplaces, even in classrooms. For the first time in months, the narrative wasn't suspicion. It was solidarity. Outside Adelaide Cottage, flowers began arriving before sunset. By 8 p.m., the gates were lined with flickering candles, white lilies, and cards written by children. One note taped to the wall read, "Dear Princess Catherine, please get better. We miss your smile. Love, Ellie, age 7. Others simply wrote, "You are brave." It wasn't a coordinated movement, it was instinct. The people simply showed up. News outlets softened. Even the harshest tabloids, those who had relentlessly questioned her absence, published apologies. One cover from the Daily Mail read simply, "Forgive us." The BBC ran 8 uninterrupted minutes of tribute footage. International outlets in Canada, Australia, France, and Kenya each covered the news with a mix of shock and compassion. In a rare moment, global headlines aligned with public emotion. Celebrities and public figures joined in. David Beckham posted, "She's always handled herself with strength and grace, wishing her full recovery." Michelle Obama, who had worked with Catherine on children's health initiatives in 2019, wrote, "Sending love to one of the kindest women I've met. Catherine, your strength inspires the world. Even Prince Harry, despite deep divisions, released a brief message from his home in Montecito. We are thinking of Catherine and the entire Wales family at this time. And through it all, William stayed quiet. Not out of fear, but because, finally, the truth was speaking for itself. But just when the public believed the emotional wave had peaked, it rose again. Because while William had spoken, Catherine hadn't. Most assumed she was too weak, too ill, too private. But in one small addition, tucked at the end of William's statement, Catherine had shared a message of her own. It was brief, quiet, and unmistakably her. And in just 3 sentences, she reminded the world exactly who she is, not just a princess, but a woman of immeasurable strength. Catherine's personal message. It was less than 50 words, just 3 short sentences written in her own hand and added to the bottom of William's release. Thank you for your kindness, your prayers, and your quiet loyalty. I've felt your love through the silence, and it gave me strength on the darkest days. I ask only for patience, and I promise I will return in time. Those words landed like a whisper, but they carried the force of a woman who had endured 6 silent, painful months and still found the grace to speak. Insiders later revealed that Catherine typed the message herself in the early morning hours of November 16th, curled up on the sofa in a soft gray jumper, a cup of chamomile tea beside her. She had rewritten it 4 times, cutting out every extra word. When William read the final version, he reportedly said, "That's not just your voice. That's your heart." The public's response was immediate. The quote was printed on posters, framed in shop windows, turned into digital artwork, and even tattooed by one fan in Scotland within 36 hours. News channels aired the message uninterrupted. It became the centerpiece of school assemblies, community vigils, and even a candlelit choir performance in Hyde Park on November 19th. People read it not just as a statement, but as a promise. What struck the world most was the tone, calm, grateful, and resolute. Even in her illness, Catherine gave thanks. Even while healing, she gave hope. She didn't owe the public anything, and yet she offered everything. And just like that, she reminded us, strength doesn't always roar. Now, with the truth out and the world embracing her, the question remains, what comes next? Catherine is still healing. William is stepping back. The monarchy, once defined by polished images and practiced distance, is being reshaped by something far more powerful: empathy. This moment wasn't just a personal crisis, it was a turning point. And as the dust begins to settle, one thing is clear. Catherine's road ahead may be uncertain, but it is entirely her own, and the world is walking it beside her. What happens now? Prince William opened the final part of his statement with quiet certainty. We don't know exactly what the next weeks or months will look like, but we're taking them together, step by step. And with those words, the nation understood. The road ahead would be slow, deliberate, and shaped by love, not obligation. Catherine remains under medical care, continuing treatment from a small team of trusted specialists between Adelaide Cottage and the London Clinic. Her progress, while steady, is still fragile. But William confirmed she is improving. In the coming months, William will scale back public duties. Palace sources say he's cleared his schedule through January 2026, canceling engagements in New York, Singapore, and a scheduled tour of Scotland. His role as Prince of Wales will temporarily take a back seat to a more personal title: husband and father. "My priority is home," he told aides. "The crown will wait. She won't." Those closest to the couple say his decision was immediate and deeply personal. The children remain central. George, now in year 7, has taken on the role of big brother with quiet maturity. Charlotte, ever sensitive, often writes notes to her mother and leaves them on her nightstand. And little Louis, the heart of the family, has become Catherine's constant shadow on good days. Their world, once defined by timetables and engagements, now revolves around healing rituals, short walks, evening stories, and shared meals in the garden when Catherine feels strong enough to join. And while Catherine's return to royal life is not imminent, it is expected. "In time," William said, "and only when she feels ready." No dates, no pressure. The palace has agreed. Her health will not be politicized, scheduled, or measured by appearances. Her next public step, when it comes, will be hers alone. But even in her absence, Catherine's presence remains powerful, not as a face on a balcony, but as a woman who reminded the world that royalty doesn't mean perfection. It means humanity. This was never just a story about illness. It became something bigger, a reckoning for the royal family, a call to protect, not perform, a shift from formality to feeling. And in that shift, Catherine and William didn't just defend their privacy, they redefined what it means to lead. The road ahead may still be uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it's lit by something the monarchy has often struggled to hold on to: truth, empathy, and the unwavering strength of love.